We'll put this one up here and one in the bathroom, and here's your torch. Obi gives me a pink torch and shows me how to pull out the handle and wind it up. He's brought us a couple of lanterns for our flat and a torch each for me and Mum. He doesn't ask to see Mum, but gives me her torch to give to her. It's yellow. You show your mum how to wind it up, okay, kid? He says. I know he's going to go soon. He's just walked up with me to bring the lantern and torches after we had dinner with Dory. I had to carry Mum's plate again. We had a pie tonight, and Dory put this funny little china blackbird in the middle of it, so you could just see its head and beak poking out of the top of the pie. She said, we have Obi to thank for the pastry. I didn't know what she meant, so I said to him, did you make it? He gave a small chuckle and then said, no, Dory just means I found the ingredients. Right, I'll be off now. See you in the morning, kid. I say, good night, Obi, and thanks for the torches. And he's gone. Mum's sleeping with her back turned towards me. It's hard to do it without making any noise, but I try to put Mum's plate on her bedside table as quietly as I can and take away the one I brought up at lunchtime that's empty now. I wish she was awake so I could tell her about Obi and Dory. I want to tell her that I'm all right, that there's someone looking after me. It feels important that she knows, but I don't want to wake her. I leave her a torch and tiptoe out. I'll have to show her how to wind it up later. They're really good torches because they'll never run out of batteries. You just have to turn the handle a few times and the light comes on. I decide to wind mine up lots and lots so it won't run out for a really long time. I take a bit of time drawing Obi and Dory into my scrapbook. I think I get Dory right, but I find Obi hard to draw. It's difficult to draw someone who is cross and kind at the same time. Then I switch the lantern off and play with my torch lying on the sofa. I don't mind the dark as much now that I have it. I make the beam move all over the room so I can see every little part of it. I see things that I wouldn't normally see if the lights were on. I see a little crack in the ceiling that goes all the way from one wall to the other, and I find a thin, floaty spider's web that hangs in one corner of the room. I make shadow animals out of my hands and they dance on the ceiling and march to the window. And that's when I see it. Another light. A torch from the block opposite mine. From Gaia's block. I flash my torch on and off from my window and I wait. The torch in Gaia's block blinks on and off back at me. The next time I switch it off quickly 3 times so it flashes and then leave it on for a moment at the end before I turn it off. I look out at the tower and see the pattern being repeated back. I have heard of a code that people use with torches on and off again, but I don't know it, and I get the feeling that the other person doesn't either. We just keep copying each other's torchlight patterns over and over. We're not able to make words, but I think what we're saying to each other is more important than that. We are saying, I'm here, you're here, and I can see you. Our torch signalling goes on into the night until the other person leaves their beam on and waves it from side to side and then switches it off. I think they're waving goodbye, saying good night. I try to sleep, but I can't stop thinking about the light I just saw from the other block. It looked like it could have come from the same floor as me, the 17th floor, but it didn't seem to be any higher or lower than my flat. I can't help but wonder if it was Gaia who was signalling to me. And what if she wasn't signalling me just to tell me she was there? What if she was trying to tell me that she needed help? The next morning when I wake up, the very first thing I do is look out of the window at Gaia's tower. From where I am, I can see the blueshes have completely surrounded the block. Even from so high up, I can see their glistening blue bodies entangling one another, and terrifyingly I see that they are moving. Are they swaying in the wind or raging towards Gaia's tower, reaching forward to their next meal? The ground all around the tower is thick with them, mass of blue. And I can see, with deadly certainty, that they have started to feed. It is the same with all of the other blocks that are still standing. I can almost sense the bluish's hunger in the way that they've gathered round the bottom of each building, their silvery blue colour pulsing as they push forward, like how sometimes you can see your heartbeat on your wrist. It's not a big movement, but it doesn't stop. One pulse follows another, and then another, and then another, and it won't stop until that building has gone. Whatever it is that they're doing, it won't be too long before they eat away so much at the bottom of the building's blocks that they just collapse. I can see that the lower parts of the buildings are already a little thinner. They won't last long. I count up 17 windows to find Gaia's flat. I try to look really hard to see if anyone is moving inside, but it's too far away. But I know there is someone there, and that if I don't do something, I will watch the tower fall, knowing that there is another person trapped inside. And the part that I don't want to say out loud to myself is that that person might be Gaia. I have to find Obi. He will know what to do. I run downstairs to find him. I stop at Dory's flat first because I think she might know where Obi is. Dory opens the door straight away and says, "Good timing, Addie. I've just put some porridge on." But she stops talking when she sees my face. Dory sends me downstairs to the basement to find Obi. She doesn't ask me what's wrong or tell me to calm down. She just looks at my face and says, "Try the basement, Addie." I hardly ever come down here. There are big, thick pipes that run along the ceiling and only very small rectangular windows, so without the lights on, it's hard to see where you are walking. Part of me feels afraid, an old fear that you could just get lost in these corridors and never get out, as if it was a maze or a labyrinth rather than just a bunch of rooms and hallways. I put the thought out of my mind and start walking, shouting out Obi's name as I go. "You scared me, kid," Obi says when he pokes his head out the doorway. That's a joke, I think. How could I scare anyone? I tell Obi about the torch signals, how I think it might be my friend Gaia and how the Bluches have surrounded the other buildings. Obi doesn't say anything as I speak. He frowns and rubs his face quite a lot, but he doesn't speak until I've finished. I've been so worried about Gaia and so glad to see Obi that I barely noticed the room we are in. You know when you are feeling and thinking about two things at exactly the same time and they take up all the space in your brain? When I finish talking, I look around me and take in where we are. I guess I must be in Obi's flat, but it's tiny, just one room really, and quite a small one at that. There's a single bed that has red and green blanket on it, neatly tucked in, and a little chest of drawers, but not much else. It almost looks like it could belong to anyone, but there are lots and lots of framed photographs on Obi's chest of drawers. I can see Obi in one of them standing next to a lady, but he's smiling from ear to ear, so it might not be him. Perhaps it's his identical twin. I open my mouth to ask him who it is, but then I remember in a rushing flood why I came to find Obi. I think of Gaia trapped in the tower, the blue swarm of Bluches hungrily feasting at the foundations of her building. "Please help," I say instead. When Obi talks, it's so slow and quiet I have to strain my ears to hear him. "We must try to rescue them," he says. "But what about the spores?" "We must try," he says again. Over the next hour, I learn more and more about Obi's job as a caretaker. I find out that he has a bunch of keys that can open every door in the tower. Imagine, he'd go into anyone's flat at any time. "Only if I need to fix things, Addie," Obi tells me as I stare open-mouthed at the set of shiny brass keys. "Not just because I fancy it." "But you can open any door in this building?" "Yes, of course." "Even the door to my flat?" "Yes." "Have you ever had to do that?" I ask, looking at Obi out the corner of my eye. "Your mum's let me in the past, so I haven't had to." "Oh," I said. "How's your mum doing?" Obi says quietly and quickly. "She's all right," I say. She... It's okay, Addie, as long as she's all right." "I don't think she knows what's going on," I continue. "Oh," says Obi, "that must be difficult." "Well," I say, not wanting to say yes or no. "It's hard not to talk through things with someone you love." "Who do you talk to?" I ask. Obi chuckles a bit, although I don't know why. "Me?" He scratches his beard thoughtfully. "Well, I guess I talk to Dory." "Do you love Dory then?" "Well, Dory's a splendid woman. Maybe I do love her in some ways, but..." Obi goes quiet then, and I start thinking about the woman in the photograph. I wonder if that's the person that Obi loves. "But," I say, "well, things change, don't they?" "Is this the woman you love?" I ask, and I point to the framed photograph sitting on the chest of drawers. Obi picks it up and stares at it thoughtfully. "Cicely," she says. "Cicely was a wonderful woman. Where is she now?" Obi looks at me sharply and puts the frame back into the chest so violently that it falls over on his face. He says to pick it up and stand it back again properly. "She left," he says simply. He stands up. The conversation is over. Now let's go and help Gaia before those bluchers get any further. Obi walks out of the tiny room and I spend a moment looking at those smiling faces. Cicely's bright, friendly smile, and I know now who the other person is. It isn't Obi's twin. It's Obi, when he was very happy. I run to catch up with Obi, who's already disappearing down the corridor. I soon learn that Obi knows about everyone living in the tower. He doesn't just know about my mum. He knows about Michael's mum and that she's good at cooking. He knows about the man on the second floor who never used to leave his flat. He wasn't like mum, though. It was because he was too old. He had someone come round to bring him meals every day, and when the building started falling, his daughter came and took him away. He knows about the family with a mum who always made nice cakes. He knows about the woman who owned a kitten that had a cat that had kittens. He knows about everyone. He takes me to a flat on one of the lower floors. It has a funny medicinal smell about it, a bit like the stuff that people pour onto a cut and they say it won't hurt, but it does. Everything in the flat is brown, the chairs, the sofa, even the walls and the lampshades. Obi picks up 2 small silver bottles which have thin clear plastic wires with a mask attached to them from behind one of the chairs. Then we go to a flat a few floors up. It's full of large photographs of jungles and deserts and things like that. There's a large vase of flowers that have died on a table in the sitting room, and lots of books too. But unlike Dory's books, which look like they've been read about 10 times, these ones are shiny and big, glossy and new looking. Obi comes out of the bedroom with one of those really big rucksacks that looks so huge you can't imagine how one person can carry it on their back. He gives it to me to carry. Although it's so big with nothing in it, it's quite light. When we go back down in Obi's room in the basement, Obi carrying the oxygen tanks and me, the rucksack. Obi hands me a roll of white tape. You've got to stick this over the mask, kid, when I tell you. No holes, okay? He has put the silver bottles into the bag and fiddled with the top of one of the bottles so that we can hear a little hissing sound. Then he puts the rucksack on his back and sits on the bed. He puts the mask on and tells me to cover it. I try my best, I really do, but I'm worried. The woman on the TV said that the spores are tiny, and I'm sure they could get through the tape. When I'm done, Obi takes a scarf out of his drawer and wraps that over his face as well, so all that you can see are his eyes, but that is all. Then he pulls out a pair of swimming goggles and puts those on too. He looks mad, but he says, "You can't be too careful," and I agree. "Wait in Dory's flat for me. Don't come downstairs whatever you do. Promise me, Addy. I might let spores into the tower when I go out, so you must wait with Dory." "Okay," I say. "Good luck." But it doesn't seem enough just to say that. Because what I'm thinking is, please, please be all right. Please, please come back. Please, please save Gaia. And I'm thinking that Obi is the bravest man I have ever met.